which one of Rashford and Garnacho wants to play as a wing back? Neither.
Or do they play in a role they're maybe not familiar with as a bit of a 10?
Yeah. Or Rashford back up front?
Yeah, and you play Højlund in the 10. Someone's nose is getting bent out of shape a little bit. I think the happiest person in the world is Amak.
So Ruben Amorim has finally got his hands on the Manchester United squad and is implementing his style of play. We saw a sort of elongated tactical training session that we don't usually kind of see from Manchester United. We're going to go through that, look at the lineup that we saw, look at the players and the tactics that we saw Ruben Amorim sort of implement in that training session, and have a bit of a look at the wider implications of that. Stephen Howson here, of course. How are you?
I'm all right.
I'm excited, is how I am actually. Because firstly, let's just break this down sort of piece by piece. In terms of formation, we were all having this question, will it be 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1, but we'll call it 3-4-3 for the sake of people knowing what we're on about. Or will it be stick to the kind of 4-3-3 that we've seen for probably 6 or 7 years now at United, mostly.
We only kind of deviated under Louis a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
I know Ollie did it literally just for the Emirates. I don't think he did it outside, not sorry, the Etihad, sorry. I don't think he did it anywhere else.
But typically it's been a 4-2-3-1 kind of structure. This was the big question going into sort of this week, and it looks as though just from this kind of 6.5 minute video, that question might be answered. It was definitely a 3-4-3-1. Does that surprise you? How much did you expect Amorim to be first training session, right, new formation?
Well, if he was going to change the formation, you kind of want to get that out of the way early doors, because it's a lot to change for players. Me and Ronnie was talking about this the other day on XG Files. The Premier League is so fast. I think because of our elevated widescreen view, you feel like it's actually not that quick. But once you get 6 feet away from it, the speed of thought, the precision of those touches to be a Premier League footballer are outrageously high. It's insane. So if you have to think, shit, when am I meant to be here now? Which you will have to with an adaptation of a formation to go from a back three to a back four, and totally new roles for a lot of players, especially without having wingers. Yeah. Like that sort of narrow forward line. There's going to be so much of where it's not automatic for players, where that's going to take a lot of reps to sort of figure out, am I in the right place here, am I in the right place here? The 4-2-3-1, not just has it been prevalent at United, it's been prevalent in football for a long time now, where people have grown up playing it, very comfortable playing it. The centre-halves know exactly where they need to be in terms of like what sort of positioning do I need to cover inside, to cover that wing area. Now I've got an extra guy in between me. Some of these they have, but there might be some of our defenders that have never played in a 3 that go, actually I'm a bit wigged out here. Do I press on? Can I press on because I've got 2 more behind me, or do I stay? Do I organise? So those things that are automatic right now in a 4-2-3-1, because they've played that formation for years and years and years, start to become a little bit, they have to deliberately think about what to do. And that might be enough to completely miss whatever you're aiming to do, or the tackle that you're trying to do, or the ball went in and you should have been there. We don't recognise how fluid and fast it happens in the Premier League because of the angle that you get, even in the ground, let alone on TV. Whereas if it's not automatic, you're going to be a yard off the pace, I think. So that's the thing that he's got to get into them ASAP, because the learning curve will be hard. And some players may not just be able to adapt to it. Yeah. Some might, and some be like, this is fine. I grew up playing this, so it's easy for me. Others might not. So you have to set your stall out. If you're going to change the formation, it's the biggest impact. Throwing set plays, controlling the ball, passing the ball, taking a shot, that's not changing for them. No. What's changing is my roles and responsibilities within the team. And if Joe misses his man, is it my man or is it his man?
Who rushes next and all that stuff?
That's the thing that's the hardest thing to get automatic. Yeah. And it will be automatic, even if it's been dysfunctional for us at times. That's the sort of stuff when people go, aren't they a well-drilled team? Yeah. It's not easy, that.
No. And also, you realise as well that, do you know when a player's not on form or not fully fit and they do that thing where they just hesitate a bit too long, or they take one extra touch? Like you said, when the game's as fast as it is, one extra touch or half a second longer is the difference between getting your shot off and it getting blocked, or being able to turn away from your man, or being tackled. Like, we are going to see some of those teething issues, I'm sure. Just looking at the lineup that we saw, it was a sort of back three of Shaw on the left, Evans and Yoro as your sort of back three, Malacia left wing back, Mainu and Casemiro in the middle, Anthony as the right wing back, Mount and Ahmad kind of in that sort of inside number 10 winger combo thing, and Rashford was the number 9. Obviously, the personnel may well change, I'm sure it will, because there's plenty of players coming back. But a couple of things. One side, we've got Anthony, who's a winger. I mean, I wasn't joking, but I was kind of really stretching my belief in Anthony's career to say that that could be something for him going forward. But looking outside of the personnel in particular, you've got a winger on one side and a fullback on the other side. Luke Shaw could have been the other one if we'd have wanted to do 2 fullbacks. Does that tell you something about maybe the roles and responsibilities of that position? Because what seemed to be happening is we'd get the ball into midfield and they would spray these balls out wide to the wing backs, who would then either play it through to the number 10s or cut it back. Do you think there's going to be an emphasis on one maybe being inverted on the other side, a winger dropping into that role, maybe a Garnacho or an Anthony, and then the other side being a more conventional fullback?
It's kind of what he's had at Sporting.
Yeah.
So going off the history, maybe. I mean, we didn't really have... If Dalot would have been available and he'd have chose to put Anthony there, I think that would have been a bit more telling than... I felt it was very much who turned up, rather than... I think it might have very much been the first 10 through the door, really, than anything more than that. But I do think there is something in seeing one being probably a little bit more defensive-minded and one probably being a bit more attack-minded. And you can even make the case of that with the 2 sort of number 10s as well. One very much a winger, one very much a bit of a number 8. Mm-hmm. So, like, it'd be interesting to see. Listen, the proof is going to be about R3 on Sunday when we find out what the team's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be funny, innit, if we just lose and don't really get
or
going.
It's 4-2-3-1. And everyone went, well, fuck me, I didn't know that.
That's very possible as well.
And then everyone goes, that training footage was a little old bollocks.
Well, on that, though, because it's weird that to get 6 minutes of, like, there was a little bit of rondo stuff at the start, like warm-uppy kind of...
That's what we usually get.
And that's usually all we usually get. This was, like, 3-minute chunk of, like, a third of the way to kind of 2/3 of the way through was... like, not cheesy music over the top. You could hear the shouting, the chatting, actual drills. You know, playing how we're going to play out from the back, how we're going to receive the ball from the centre backs, and then this emphasis on sprinting back into position as well. Why do you think they've released that? Because usually that's the kind of stuff that you hide or you don't show the opposition beforehand and all that. But it was quite revealing, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know we've seen bits of different training sessions. Erik ten Hag, we got a little bit. We didn't get this. We didn't get to see this level of detail, especially with the change of formation, because there wasn't a change of formation with Erik ten Hag, so that wasn't anywhere near as revealing. But yeah, I thought we saw quite a bit of detail. I liked seeing the hands-on coaching and interventions that he was doing. I thought that was interesting to see, and it's another sort of deviation from what we've had with Erik ten Hag, who I think since Ruud van Nistelrooy and René had came in, had taken a bit more of a backseat observational kind of role, just from what we saw.
We saw that in pre-season, didn't we?
Yeah. And it was Ruud that was running the session exactly the way Amorim was, like in the middle of the pitch, hands-on, literally. I mean, Johnny Evans has been properly man-marked. But literally doing that with the players and moving around. It was only shadow play.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what that would have evolved to for the rest of the week. But yeah, it's obviously something that you've got to get done early doors if you're going to change the shape of everyone. I think everyone's starting to come back now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think a couple of them, Bruno had already come back maybe yesterday, and then a couple others coming back. Yeah, should be coming back now. Just a little bit, I want to talk about the interactions with players and that chat with Mainu and some other little bits as well. But just on the way they were building up from the back, one thing that I saw that I've never really seen United prioritise, really ever, and you mentioned about the 4-2-3-1. Bayern Munich were the first team I remember obviously being a 4-2-3-1. Obviously it's been around and people have done it for years, but that 2010 Bayern Munich side where Muller was just in the channels, cutting, like he was a 10, but he was also in those half spaces just constantly.
May I refer you to the 1993-94 Manchester United side?
4-2-3-1, was it?
It's 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
Who was your midfield? Keane and Ince.
Yeah.
Fucking positions do you think they played?
Yeah.
Who was your wingers? Giggs and Kanchelskis.
Yeah.
You had Cantona in the hole.
Yeah.
Usually behind like a McClare or a Hughes or somebody like that.
Yeah.
You tell me that wasn't 4-2-3-1.
Well, it was, yeah, but I don't remember it. I remember, like I said, that Bayern Munich side. But one thing that I always remember about them, and then you remember City do it all the time, Liverpool did it all the time under Klopp, is the run sort of into kind of where the 18-yard box meets the goal line, and cutting balls back from there. Like City do it constantly.
It's called the half space.
The half space. There was a real emphasis on that. Mason Mount on one side, and it was Ahmad on the other side, and that ball either coming out wide to the fullbacks and into that space, and then we're cutting it back to the box. United have never really prioritised that in recent seasons, so it doesn't feel like they have. Those runs through the lines and playing ball quickly.
No, not really. Not hitting the byline and then pulling it back towards the penalty spot.
Do you like that?
I don't even like or dislike it. It is what it is. It's a tool. I have two ways of crossing at Paddock that we practice. We run these patterns. One of them is that pass. It is that run with Ronaldo, actually, because he's fucking he's almost flawless. He gets to that position and pulls one back. The other one I have is a cross from deep, what people would recognise as the Beckham or the Trent kind of area, so like a little bit further outside the box. So I focus on those two areas to go for. There's no right or wrong. Just because that's what you're trying to practice doesn't mean that that's the patterns that you end up seeing in a game. I think United, with our inverted wingers over the last, it feels like a decade, doesn't it? Yeah. Post Tony Valencia, we've not really decided to hit that. Post Evra, really. Evra would find himself in those areas and checking the ball back into that. We haven't really had the personnel. When you think of Rashford and you think of Martial, when you see them cutting in, 99 times out of 100, that's to have a shot.
Yeah.
It's not to create. Whereas when you think about the likes of what City have done, the way they've carved it up, wingers are usually a bounce pass looking for an underlap. Someone will look to check it back from the half space in a real broad brush kind of how do they play kind of vibe. I don't think there's anything better or worse. I just think it's a method of chance creation.
Who does this benefit then? Not necessarily like players, but which position? Is the number 9 going to be getting more chances? Is it those 2 10s?
Not necessarily, because quite often what you want from your number 9 is you want your number 9 pushing that defensive line. So when the pattern that we run, for example, you might have Ronaldo come down the left-hand side. He fucking always beats his fullback. It's not a problem, and he always gets a cross off from that sort of area. My number 9's job is to take the front post. And he takes a defender with him. So what you're looking to pull it back to is one of the midfielders generally.
Right.
So in United's case, depending who it is that's going to be cutting it back, you might be looking for one of those number 10s.
Okay.
Or it might end up being one of those number 10s that gets in beyond, because I'm not that familiar with the patterns that this formation looks to. It might say when it comes on this side, it might be Mason Mount's job or whoever the left side 10 is. You go across the front post, you try and distract that front post defender, because there's certain truths in defending. One is that you're always going to want to have a +1 in your back line. You're always going to want to have one more defender than they've got attackers. That's why you see the different when it's 4-3-3 versus 4-3-3. But it's they've got 4 because they've got 3. Like this very straightforward way of defending. And there's one of the other truths is that you always want to that first centre half will always defend that front post.
Yeah.
That's just a truth of football. So always a striker is going to make a run towards that in case they don't, or to make sure that they do, to create a gap and a space in behind it for somebody else to arrive. And if you look at what Manchester City did well under Aguero would not necessarily be the one that goes across the front post. He would often find himself doing double movement type stuff where he would look to go and come back in. And he had the agility to be able to do that, and he was one of the best in the world I've ever seen at finding that sort of space. Erling Haaland's not the same. Erling Haaland quite often drifts towards the back post.
He's against United, he's done that multiple times, that header at the back post when they dink it back. So that's the other cross. So you've got the cross from the half space on the outside of the box, the De Bruyne area, if you like, of the pitch, 10-15 yard in, just outside the box, sent to the back post, stand one up at the back post and see what happens. And again, depending on what patterns you're running and what the sort of natural tendencies of your forward line are, you're not standing one at the... Like, I used to see it all the time prior to them getting Erling Haaland.
when they had Gabriel Jesus, and I'm like, this is fucking waste of everybody's time. He's not there, and he's not winning them. They bring Erling Haaland in, and you go, oh.
Annoyingly, that works.
That works quite well.
Who, I know we've spoken about this already, but is there anyone that you, having seen that footage and having a bit more of an idea of actually what it might well look like, is there anyone where you go, that might work for them? Because
not really. The defenders, it does.
Yeah.
I think De Ligt, Yoro, Martinez is a brilliant on paper defence. Can't wait to see how that sort of shapes up. The midfield is really sort of anyone's guess. You might be seeing Christian Eriksen, you might be seeing Casemiro, you might be seeing Bruno, you might be seeing Ugarte, you might be seeing
Mainu.
Or you might be seeing, who did I just say?
Everyone except Mainu.
I definitely meant Mainu.
Oh, maybe you said it and I missed it.
You might be seeing all of them and none of them. Like you won't be none of them, obviously, but any of them too at some point is going to be involved. And then, where do you bring in the wingers? Do you play a winger?
I think that's the hard thing.
Yeah.
Because which one of Rashford and Garnacho wants to play as a wing back? Neither.
Or do they play in a role they're maybe not familiar with as a bit of a 10?
Yeah. Or Rashford back up front?
Yeah, and do you play Højlund in the 10? Like, someone's nose is getting bent out of shape a little bit. I think the happiest person in the world is Ahmad. Because like, can you play? Yeah, I can. Yeah,
I can play there. I can probably do a wing back job if you really want me to. I can do the 10. I can. Yeah.
I think he's thinking quids in here.
Yeah. There was that footage as well of Amorim with Mainu, and obviously we don't know what was said. It looked as though he was sort of gesturing towards the full-back area, or maybe how Mainu should be shown for the ball, or I don't know what it was. What do you make though just of, it's his first proper training session, really hands-on, really conversational. I'm not saying, I don't want to slag Ten Hag off because I don't think he was a bad manager, but do you see differences there in terms of how hands-on and not with the actual coaching, but with the players he is? It seemed very conversational and quite friendly, but there was an element of detail there as well.
I like the detail.
Yeah.
I think the stuff that we saw of Erik Ten Hag was quite shouty actually.
Yeah.
It was, remember the Zidane getting a bollocking for not doing something quick enough a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That's not to say Amorim's not going to dish those out at the same time as well, but like I saw more of that than I saw, let me just talk to you about shape here, body shape, or where was first thought when we receive. That's what it looked like he was talking about.
Yeah, because he's like slapping his leg like he's talking about taking the ball on the turn or controlling it with a certain foot. Like you said, Ten Hag was a bit more stand at the side and shout the instruction in. That was come in here and let's talk privately kind of thing. And hopefully those little things are the things that can build relationships with people in a different way to maybe some of that kind of...
And maybe the players respond better to that. We heard early doors, didn't we, from people in the squad. Ten Hag was a bit cold, and that was one of the reasons Steve McLaren was brought in. Yeah, was because he's a bit more warm. Yeah. If nothing else, Steve McLaren is definitely a warm. Like I went into the bar one night when we was in the Estancia, and he was holding court, and I never thought Steve McLaren was charismatic, but fucking hell, yeah, like they had the whole fucking gaff on strings, and I was like, wowzers. And then we'd heard one of the reasons he brought him in is because he's got that little bit more personality, whereas Ten Hag is almost like a fucking turbo nerd about his tactics and his shape, but it's comes across almost as cold. Yeah, and maybe the players didn't respond to that. Maybe that was one of the reasons why it didn't work, is because they wanted or felt like they needed, or even if they subconsciously prefer someone that maybe is a little bit warmer. And perhaps that was why Ruud got the reception that he got from some of the lads, because Ruud has got an aura that I think as successful as Erik Ten Hag was/wasn't at United, he never had an aura. No. Whereas Ruud just fucking dripping off it, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. And if I don't think Amorim at the moment certainly doesn't suggest to me he's got any level of aura. But if he's a nice bloke, and if he can convince you as an individual about what you're trying to do, and if he can give it to you in a way that you respond to, well, then he's a good coach. Exactly. Right. I think that'll do. It's lovely. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. This was a little deeper look at Ruben Amorim's first training session as Manchester United manager. See you in a bit.